Hey, we're live. It's the pre-show. What might be the best part of this show? WeatherBrains episode number 525 for Monday, the 8th of February, 2016. This is the part of the show where we occasionally share humorous anecdotes, boring personal stories, and say outrageous things. Kevin looks locked and loaded.
He does. He's on a rant, I can tell. He's ready.
The problem is, people are expecting something from you tonight.
Only if NBC shows up.
They totally expect something from you. They're expecting something special tonight.
Are they coming?
I don't know. Bill, who's on the show tonight?
NBC coming?
Jacob, last minute, is going to be on. So I'm sending you his email address in just a second, James.
Okay,
He
Jacob,
just called.
the
Rascon.
who is this?
Yeah. The NBC correspondent.
Oh, the NBC guy. All right.
Yeah.
Good. Wow, this is
Y'all
fantastic.
be nice to him. He's a nice guy. He's very nice. He was very apologetic about what happened.
Well, it's not his fault. I mean, I don't think anybody's got a bone to pick with him. His story was clean.
No, it wasn't. The
I
email
didn't-
you sent?
I didn't see the package.
Oh, you're talking about the package?
Yeah, the
I thought
package.
his
The
package
reporter
was
did.
pretty good.
This is the reporter that's coming?
Yeah.
Why do we
Yeah.
have him? He's not the one that did the thing.
Well, the guy that did the thing's not going to come on this show. I mean,
Why
you know
not?
that.
Because he actually wrote the tease, Kevin, and they changed it
Ah.
on the fly. The anchor changed it on the fly. Apparently.
Lester?
You can ask that question. I don't know.
But there was a graphic.
Yeah, he couldn't. Somebody had to prepare that graphic.
Well, good. Well, y'all can. We should do it like a legal trial.
When he comes on, should we ask him if he needs a lawyer?
Yeah, this might be
Let's
the end.
let's put him under oath. Yeah, really. His entire family's into journalism too. They're reporters and anchors and all sorts of stuff all over the country.
Tonight, fighting words. Donald Trump says Ted Cruz stole.
I'll be sure my act together is here.
I'm gonna send you the invite. Address James.
Well, you can invite him, can't you? Well, there you go. There's the.
No, I can't. For some reason, there was that one week that I could, and I no longer have that ability. It was like a miracle that I could do it, and now I can't.
Is he in New York?
I think
He's
he
in
said
Los,
he'd be in
he's in
Miami.
Dallas. He's in Dallas. He lives in Dallas.
Hey, Brian, tomorrow I will open up a hangout. I'm sure they'll want this over the air.
Okay.
And I'll do it remotely, but I'll still use this Mac Mini in my room, and I'll leave this, the one we always use for Charles in there, and he's pretty good at figuring out. And again, we're on the stable network now, so.
Oh, that's good.
In fact, I'm using it for this show. This is the first time I have not been on the Jabroni network.
And we haven't lost you yet.
Jabronis.com.
What's his name, Bill?
Jacob Rascon, Rascon, Jacob. He's a correspondent for NBC News.
After this show, a former correspondent for NBC News.
Well, I've assured him that we would do nothing that would threaten his job.
No. This guy's in luck because of the Carnival Cruise Lines thing. See, the attention has now been diverted.
No, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
From his story to these other jabronis. Well, nobody told us there was going to be a storm.
How do you, in the world, do you take a $940 million ship with 5,000 people on board?
6,000.
Only a year.
With the crew.
6,000?
With the crew.
No,
It's a small city.
We
It's
need
4,180 people plus crew of 760. That's about 5,000.
We need to get those guys.
I think
on the
then there's
show
a bigger one. There's one that has 4,900 plus 1,500 in it somewhere. There's a whole.
Yeah.
There's like 3 ships that are in it.
Well, this is the Royal Caribbean's Anthem of the Seas.
Who on the show goes on these cruises? Don't one of you guys go on these things all the time?
No, did you see? We have a former
Never
staff
been on one.
on that boat.
Yeah, I saw your email. We ought to get him on the show.
I know it.
But Brian, don't you go on these cruises?
I've taken 3. Yes.
So
Just
what's
3.
wrong with these people?
You got me. I want to know what's wrong with those people for parking cars on a frozen lake. What kind of idiot does that?
Another rant. See, this is going to be the rant show.
I'm going to ask my daughter for that sign back that we gave her, the one that says you can't fix stupid.
Whoop.
I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or not, but there sure is a lot of stupid people out there.
See,
I like it. Brian's cranky.
Proliferating. Yes, I am cranky.
My favorite bumper sticker of all time says, "Never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers."
Absolutely. By the way, did anybody here watch the Super Bowl last night?
I actually watch most of it. I'll usually watch like 5 minutes and turn it off.
Pitiful?
I thought that was the raunchiest bunch of commercials I've ever seen.
See, we need you to come on and say, the greatest thing about the Super Bowl was JB's tirades about the halftime show. We need you to do one, Brian.
Yeah, well, they should refund all those advertisers their money back. It was horrible. God.
So what did you think about what would you think about the halftime show?
Well, it looked like that guy in the white shirt was in pain. I mean, he was doubled over half the time. It's like, God, give me a break. If you're sick, stay home.
Wow, this is going to be good. I sense this is going to be a good show. And we got Brian already bashing on the Super Bowl halftime. Somewhere, yeah. I bet you we got the archives. I could dig up one of JP's rants about the Who. Yeah. I think that was the one he hated more than anything else.
Yep.
And he always griped about the naked women on Dancing with the Stars. Notice how every week he was intently focused on that show, while complaining at the same time
about the lack of clothes.
Yeah. No, this would be a great show for JB to go off on the halftime show. So I just got invited to speak at an IWT meeting in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Wow.
I'm trying to do some conferences. Now that we're empty nesters,
right.
I'm trying to.
Are you charging the fee that Hillary Clinton charges?
Yeah. Well, what does she charge? $500,000 a speech, or what's the going rate?
I don't know.
There?
She made $153 million.
That'll work. The IWT budget is not quite at that level. So I might do that. I'm doing a thing in Nashville here in a couple of weeks. Then I'm doing the thing in Mobile in a couple of weeks. The week after that. So I'm
at the
catching up
thing?
on the.
Is Megan covering your shifts, or do we know?
I think she is. I'll be gone just like for Nashville. That's a Saturday only. That's like something the weather service in Nashville does. So that's a Saturday only. And then the Mobile thing, I'm going to take Friday off for that.
She's not happy with me because she wanted to take off the weekend of April 23rd and 24th. And I'm committed.
I've got a thing. I've got to do a thing that Sunday night. Now she's saying she needs off just Saturday, so we'll figure something out. All right, It's 8:30. Let's try and invite our guest one more time, and if not, we'll just do a bunch of rants on the show here.
I hate to leave you in the lurch, but I make considerably more money out there than I do at the TV station.
Make more money where?
At my commitment.
Oh. Well, why don't you share with us what that commitment is?
The Honda Indy
He's
Grand
a male gigolo.
I am not.
Or is that redundant?
Yeah, Brian's escort service.
I have no Italian in my lineage. I have American Indian, but I don't have any.
He's just a gigolo.
So you got to camp out at one of these outdoor venues then to be the staff weatherman.
Yeah, I got to measure the rain.
Okay.
Oh my! I found that someone has tinkered with my settings. How do I sound?
Huh?
You sound actually very good.
Okay.
So
You don't expect to get a straight answer here, do you, fella?
Well, this is what this is the playroom.
wow.
So, yeah. So, and then here's my audio stuff just sitting exposed on a shelf. So
First mistake.
yes, well,
Tempting. Very tempting.
So little fingers.
Knobs, buttons.
Yes, exactly. So
Is there any peanut butter on any of those buttons there? No.
Surprisingly, no, not yet. But
No peanut allergies in the Johnson household.
no, a cheese allergy, yes, but no peanuts. We can do peanuts here.
Well, you couldn't have had James's dinner over at your house tonight because he had Kraft macaroni and cheese. Although I'm not sure that qualifies as cheese. Uh-oh. Hello, Jacob. Yep. This will be Jacob. Mute myself. Here.
So what will it's 32 after the hour. We'll sit here and give it another couple of minutes and.
You didn't want to start on time, did you?
No.
We've like started on time or close to it for the last few weeks, which is just shocking. We need to get a good 10-minute late show going here.
Got another rant. I got a nice new graphic for Aubrey, and she's not here tonight.
Brian has turned into the accelerant.
I'm learning from you.
Brian's cranky. He's got to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
Welcome to my world. Ryan is going to go flurry chasing tomorrow. That's always a ton of fun. Ryan's out there with subsidence and fog chasing.
Well, come on up here, Brian. It's snowing now.
I prefer to say I'm chasing flakes, James.
There you go. You found a bunch of them right here on this show.
They're just walking down.
Hey-o.
Oh. No, I think you just ought to keep going up into go up to Mentone or something if you have to. Just keep going until you find it.
What happens when I get out of the DMA? Does the chaser turn into a pumpkin or something?
One way to find out.
Thank you. I already know it doesn't do that because I crossed into Mississippi the other day.
I drove that thing to Bowling Green, Kentucky last year, so it won't. You're good.
Okay, that's good.
No, you can go up there to Nakalula Falls and go on the ridge, on top of the ridge.
Yeah.
On Tabor Road up there. That's a.
He said Nakalula. Pretty cool.
You just have to be careful how you say it.
No, but I'll open up a hangout sometime before. What are you leaving? Like 4:30?
Yeah, probably.
All right. I'll have it set up. I'll be awake anyway, so we'll make it fly. The one thing I've noticed on that we have to figure out is like when Charles and you were talking like over the hangout, that determines what goes out for those people watching on the live stream. And sometimes Charles will have the last word, and what winds up being on the live stream is the the iPad in the weather office instead of. All right, I see Jacob. He's on here. He made it. Cool. All right, let's get this thing started here. Naturally, I'm the lead. I think I lead every night almost now in weather. Clear, sunny, hot, cold. Let's lead with weather. All right, here we go in. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 525. In case you don't know, in case you've stumbled onto this is the weekly show all about weather. 10 years old, still alive, and still running. WeatherBrains for the 8th of February, episode 525. Thanks for joining us. I have a funny feeling this is going to be an episode full of hate, anger, rage, and rants. So this could be a good one. And Kevin, I'll warn you, man, people are expecting a lot from you this week. I mean, they are looking to you to be the accelerant.
I'm going to be my usual calm self unless there's reason to be otherwise.
Come on, man. That's not good radio.
I'm
What's the
mellow.
matter with you?
I'm old now. I've mellowed and
Are you drunk? What's wrong with you?
I've just I'm I'm learning to accept the things that I cannot change.
Oh, horse manure.
I'm going to listen very carefully. I'm very glad that our guest is coming on, and I will listen very carefully. And if I feel that there are any inconsistencies, I will point them out.
And obviously, we have a lot of issues to discuss, and most of the issues involve the no warning meme. And we have two large issues here in the last week, one involving a network news operation and one involving a passenger cruise line, and probably more than that. So, but I know, Kevin, I'm stunned. I mean, it's like, what are you on medication now, or what's wrong with you? There's something not right with you.
No, I'm mellowing. It's not a conscious decision. I'm accepting that certain horses are out of the barn, and they're probably just not coming back.
We'll get him going. Brian Peters is cranky. In fact, Brian started to go off on rants before the show started here during the pre-show. So if nothing else, we'll get we'll get Brian Peters on it. So Brian, you're cranky.
So where do you want me to start?
Well, we're going to take these things one at a time. But first off, I know one reason you're cranky. You're going to get a very limited amount of sleep tonight,
yes,
which is my problem every night. In fact, I tell people all the time, I am only 29 years old. This is what you look like when you never sleep. So my advice, get some sleep, please. You don't want to look like me. But you got to get out and go chase snow flurries tomorrow morning.
Yes, snowflakes. I'm a flake chaser.
That's a hoot. We actually got some very active weather to discuss. A lot of things are going on here. So Brian will be out chasing flurries.
But I promise you, I will not park the chaser on a frozen lake.
Yeah, so you got you got mad at these people who park their cars on thin ice in Wisconsin. I mean, you don't have any compassion for these people?
No, they park their car on thin ice. Excuse me. I am
this
not. Time of year,
I am
supposed to be thick.
I'm a good old Southern boy, so I don't understand this issue. So maybe Dr. John, you're an expert in parking cars on frozen lakes.
Oh yes, of course.
So you got a PhD. That means you're an expert in everything. So
no, that just means it's piled high and deep, James. That's all.
Piled high and deep. Post hole digger. So what do you know the story? I mean, apparently these people were going to some type of what was it? A concert or some kind of festival, and there was limited parking, so they parked their cars on a frozen lake. So is that a routine thing to do in Wisconsin in winter, John? I mean, I don't know.
It is, in fact. I know in Minnesota they set up street signs on the lakes, and they just drive right across them.
I remember seeing the movie Grumpy Old Men where they did ice fishing, you know.
That's a great movie.
I love both of those
That's
movies.
a great movie.
That was a great movie, and I saw this. There was a sign that said thin ice, you know, and he pushed that little shanty till he got in the thin ice section, and it kind of fell in there. But no, that was. But for those that don't know the story, Brian,
okay,
to tell the story, what happened?
Well, somewhere in Wisconsin, I was trying to find out exactly where, for a winter festival. About 40 cars parked on Geneva Bay when temperatures ticked upward of 32 degrees. And a dozen of the cars sank into the bay Saturday during the Lake Geneva's Winterfest celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want some frozen cars, I know where you can get some cheap.
The car wash is closed.
Yeah, I love the quote from the festival. A festival attendee said, "I hate to say it was funny, but it's certainly ridiculous." Oh, excuse me. Yeah, and you look at the pictures and it's like, that ice doesn't look all that nice, that good to me. So anyway, you park 40 cars at what, 3,000 pounds a car, 4,000 pounds a car? That's a lot of weight.
A minimum of 2 weeks of sub-freezing temperatures, for 24 hours before you start even thinking about going out on ice.
Yeah.
Live and learn. Nate Johnson, did you park your car on a frozen lake at WRAL today?
No, I did not.
So just tell me now, explain this network affiliation. You guys are changing from NBC to CBS or vice versa?
Well, we are welcoming NBC to the WRAL family.
So you're dumping. So you guys ran the Super Bowl, and now you dropped them like a slab of hamburger meat.
Our contract was up, and when we looked at our options and looked at our priorities, we found that NBC was more suited to the kind of things that we want to do in the future.
No, now tell people what's really going on.
Well,
There we go.
There we go.
Here's the thing. CBS wants to basically tell affiliates, here's your programming, here's how you're going to run it, here's when you're going to run it, here's how much you're going to pay for it, and that's that.
We want a kickback.
Partnership. That's a I'm buying something from a store, and I don't really get a chance. And they're changing the business model on how they bill affiliates. Many folks don't know that 15 years ago, as recently as 15 years ago, stations were paid by the networks to carry their programming, and now that has completely reversed. And now stations have to pay the networks. And CBS is taking this, a step further by, insisting on certain things. We found that, we started to negotiate with CBS and got into the weeds a little bit. And as it turns out, NBC was also looking for a dance partner. We visited with them and realized that they're much more into a partnership sort of an arrangement where, yes, we are paying them for programming, but we have some flexibility. First and foremost, we're not a CBS affiliate or an NBC affiliate. We are a locally owned, community service-oriented television station. And I know that sounds like a load of corporate BS, but it's not. I mean, this is and you ask anybody in the industry, this is a special place to work and a special place to be. And CBS wanted to treat us like everybody else. We've gotten to the point where we're the number one CBS affiliate in the country, in the top 25, or the largest locally owned CBS affiliate, and they essentially wanted to treat us like everybody else. NBC we realized the value of NBC's programming and bringing it to our stable. They realized the value of bringing us on as an affiliate. They're going to continue to allow us to do some of the things that we've become accustomed to doing. We air a Football Friday show called Football Friday on Friday nights during the fall, right after our 11 o'clock newscast. CBS wasn't going to let us do that. We air a lot of college basketball is a capital D, capital B, capital D big deal around here, and we air a lot of games that involves preempting network programming. NBC is going to allow us to do that. CBS was saying, no, we don't want you to. So, and at the end of the day, we got the Super Bowl this year. We're going to get the Olympics this summer. We got the Super Bowl next year because we also own a Fox affiliate. And then in 2 years, in 2018, we'll get the Winter Olympics and the Super Bowl because you got to love that, right? I think at the end of the day, this is going to be
when does the change happen?
It happens on February 29th. NBC is taking the leap and coming to WRAL. And the coolest thing about this, pretty much the only imprinted, i.e. quasi-domesticated peacock in the entire country is right here in our viewing area. It was born about 6 months ago, and the folks at the nature reserve where he was born, or he or she, we don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet, where the peacock was born, figured, well, some NBC station somewhere is going to want to have a peacock in their promos. Never in a million years did they think it'd be us right here, right now. So we had the peacock in our studio last week shooting promos, and we sent Greg Fishel out to do a spot out at the nature reserve. Our promo folks had a lot of fun with it, and it showed. It was pretty cool.
Of course, after this show, they're going to lose that NBC affiliation.
We have signed a long-term agreement, and we asked our owner what long-term meant, and he would decline to answer that question. But I'm comfortable that we will be an NBC affiliate for a while.
Now, here's my question: when does all this wind down? I mean, let's be real. I mean, the networks don't need these local affiliates anymore. I mean, they can take their product right to the public. And
that's one of the things CBS is doing that through their All Access. I mean, if you look at what they're going to do when they announced Star Trek, the reboot of the Star Trek television series, they announced that they were going to air the first episode or first 2 episodes on broadcast television, but all of the rest was going to go on their All Access program, which is a Netflix kind of a thing. It's a streaming app. You can get it on Apple TV or most of your devices, iOS, Android, that sort of thing. And you pay like $6-7 a month. But you get all of the CBS shows. CBS does not participate in Hulu. Most of their stuff isn't on Netflix. So that's part of their strategy going forward. And you're absolutely right. Long term, the networks are, and Kevin's been saying this for a long time, the networks are the content providers. The people at home are the content consumers. The local affiliates feel like middlemen. So at least for the network affiliate, for the network programming. And so you have to wonder how long, because how long that arrangement's going to last, because the internet eats middlemen for lunch.
Yeah, actually, this whole thing at some point's got to wind down. But congratulations, Nate. Sounds like you have a happy little.
We're excited. Management came down after it was announced, and we had to announce it earlier than we wanted to for reasons that were out of our control. But I really sense a genuine amount of excitement along with this. I'm excited about it. I think it's going to work out really well for us long term. We get the Super Bowl again in 2 years. We get the Olympics. I'm trying to figure out how I can find my way to Rio. Or although I don't know that I want to go to Rio with all the water, the Zika virus and everything, but but there are other places. It's going to provide some interesting opportunities for us and open some new doors, and we're excited about it.
If you go,
by the way, the interwebs, they're all upset about Kevin. I mean, this thing is really got to be a problem, Kevin.
What do you mean? I called Nate out and he talked for 10 minutes. What do you want?
No, we're upset that you're not the accelerant anymore.
Well, I just need the right spark.
All right, Dr. John Scala is in Lancaster. We talked with John about his expertise in parking cars on frozen lakes. How's the weather up there, John?
And he's muted.
And you're muted.
There you go. It's snowing now. Visibility is down to about 3/4 of a mile. We're in a winter storm warning.
Cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting next 36 hours. Looks like a long duration snow event.
I bet Dr. John wonders what all the hubbub is about flakes down here.
That's right. We might.
Or as you wrote in the chat, Brian, flask chasing. Are you going flask chasing? Is that a show title?
Flake chasing.
You typed flask. That's what I see. Okay.
The other reason Brian's cranky, his normal spots that he uses at night when he's out in that thing, Wesley's Booby Trap,
and Hooters.
The Hooters, they're not open for breakfast.
They're not? Are you kidding me?
So Bill Murray has been for the last 20 minutes working feverishly to get our guest on the line, and I think we actually have him.
And right then my internet goes out. Yeah.
You want some advice, Jacob? Get a lawyer or run fast.
Yeah, just run. That's all you need to know. No, are we good, Bill, or we still got issues here?
He can't hear us. We don't know why.
His frame rate's too low. He's probably gonna have to turn his video off.
Yeah, we would rather have the audio. That will work if he can turn that video off. It looks like the internet. It's like sucking a golf ball through a garden hose. I mean, you just when the pipe's kind of small, you got to reduce the size of what you're trying to push through there. And again, let me just say
golf ball.
Up front here, we are going to hopefully get Jacob of NBC News on with us to discuss the NBC Nightly News Open.
Geez, I spent 15 minutes talking about how great NBC is, and our guy from NBC couldn't even hear it.
No, you were sucking up to this guy. You were doing the brown nose thing. He couldn't hear a word you were saying. So sorry. We will send him a nice recorded version of this. Yeah. So, but I thought while Bill's working to get him on the show here, for those that don't know what the deal is,
there he is.
Hey!
Hey!
What? You can hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry about
And we
that.
can hear him.
Yeah. Hey.
So you'll have to go back and listen to what you missed, because I'm worth the station that is picking up NBC in 3 weeks. But I was saying some moderately nice things about you.
He was sucking up to you, Jacob.
Yeah, sucking up, man. Nobody likes a suck up. So, Bill, you want to introduce Jacob real quick, and then we'll dive into the issue here.
And now
great. Now Bill's gone away.
Now we've lost Bill.
See, Bill's got some bandwidth problems too. We think Bill's using his 1200 baud modem tonight. But anyway, while we're trying to get Bill back on the show, let's go back in the WeatherBrains time machine. Let's go back. Thank you for the sound effects. Let's go back to last Wednesday night.
Tonight, fighting words. Donald Trump says Ted Cruz stole Iowa, accusing him of voter fraud. Cruz now hitting back without warning. Tornadoes tear across the South, dozens of homes destroyed, and a church torn apart as people inside prayed for their lives.
And while Lester Holt said, without warning, tornadoes tear across the South, there was a graphic on the screen, which I don't have a screen grab to show here, that said, no warning. And that set the weather enterprise into it kind of turned it upside down. And we've been through this before. This is nothing new. It's like we fight this on a regular basis. In going back in time to 2012, on the 23rd of January of that year, just to let Jacob know, we're not picking on him and his network alone. We
pick on everybody, Jacob.
We pick on everybody. We're equal opportunity guys here. So Diane Sawyer, it was literally the same thing. I mean, let me play this thing one more time.
Tonight, fighting words. Donald Trump says Ted Cruz stole Iowa, accusing him of voter fraud. Cruz now hitting back without warning.
And Diane Sawyer said no warning. Instead, without warning, she said no warning. Tornadoes strike Alabama. And the truth is, on January 23rd of 2012, there was an excellent warning. This was a pre-dawn tornado outbreak in which 30 people could have easily died. 2 people died. It was a tragedy. We had a 16-year-old girl that was killed and an older gentleman that died in the Birmingham metro. But these were significant tornadoes. These were EF3s, and the warning system worked very effectively. And for Diane Sawyer to come on and say that was just idiotic. It demeaned everybody in the weather enterprise, those that work in the private sector and broadcast, those that work for the National Weather Service, and those that work in the EM, the emergency management community, the whole integrated warning team. And, everybody's just afraid of it's Diane Sawyer. You can't say anything. I don't care. I mean, it was wrong. It was horribly wrong. So I challenged her a little bit and got into a tweet storm. And understand, I work for an ABC channel, so there's some kind of a connection here. And they called down here the next day, and they said 2 things. Number 1, please call off the dogs. They didn't like the social media response. Yeah. And then they said, we're going to come back and do a story on how good the warning process worked. And sure enough, they did. And I said, look, I don't want to be I am not in this for pub. I'm an under-the-radar guy. I really don't. And, they come down here and they interview you, and that's fine. But the story was very good. They did a very good story on how well the warnings worked and the technology we have today and how things should work. And the reporter was so gracious with ABC News. He apologized for what happened, and again, he had nothing to do with it, and came back and did that.
Or on TV, because I recall that there was no mea culpa on TV that we shouldn't have said without warning.
Right. They never said we were wrong. They never said we're sorry. We want to straighten this out. She just came back and introduced a story about tornado warnings in Alabama saved lives early Monday morning. Our reporter shows you how, which is so odd because the night before she said on that same program, tornadoes strike with no warning. I mean, how do you go from that to the next night? You say the warnings were really good and they worked well without, I don't understand that. But again, I did not want an apology from Diane Sawyer. I just wanted them to set the story straight, and they did that. And so at least we had that. And again, this is 2012, and you guys know this meme. It's like standard. The standard things you're always going to hear. The worst is yet to come. 80 million in the path. That struck without warning. Unprecedented. And but at least they did that. So here we are in 2016. And we had a tornado outbreak that affected the southern states. And I think maybe part of the problem, and maybe it's an attitude problem that we have, that maybe we shouldn't, I don't know, is that it seems like those that are in New York City or Los Angeles that put this stuff together, I get the feeling, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, that they probably don't think much of people that live below the Mason-Dixon line. They might think we're little ignoramuses down here that can't read, and we're barefooted, and we can't speak English right, and we don't know anything. We're stupid. They don't like the culture. They don't like the whatever. And maybe that's wrong, but I think there's some element of that to this where they don't seem to do the no warning meme for the northern states, for blizzards, snowstorms, and things like that. But anyway, so here we are with NBC News. So. Jacob, sorry to put you on here, man, but thank you for coming on the show. And you were a reporter, a correspondent with NBC. You have nothing to do. Our bone to pick is not with you. Your story was good, but I guess as a journalist, how does this happen? And this is not the first time, and I guarantee it's not going to be the last. We have another case we'll talk about later that doesn't involve a news organization. But how does this happen?
I think that, as you said, the meteorologists, a lot of you were. Uh-oh. Did my phone call just die?
No, Bill. I think Bill gave up. His internet connection is so bad he can't get on the air with it. But you're good. Your audio's good. Your video's good.
Yeah. So I remember standing there waiting for the show to start, and I have my earpiece in. Of course, they check in. And we heard the start of the show, and me and my team looked at each other like, did you hear what they just said? They just said, without warning. That's not true.
So you were surprised too.
Well, yes, because you know what? We're not involved in the tease process, and I've never had a reason to be involved in the tease process because I've never known them to be inaccurate. I've never had that issue. And I've done many weather stories. I was based in Los Angeles for a while. We did a lot of flooding and mudslides and, of course, fires. And I went out with the hurricane hunters into Hurricane Danny. And
lucky.
That was awesome. In Haiti during the earthquake, or right after the earthquake, I'm sorry. And done many weather stories. And I've never known the headline, the tease, to be wrong. And of course I noticed it immediately, and on Twitter we realized, of course, would notice. We knew that. And so I called and I said, and I forwarded some of the tweets and said, hey, you guys, there was warning. You know that, right? And so it was there's really nothing to defend because it was a mistake. I mean, nobody would ever defend that. It just happened in the course of, there's a 30-minute broadcast that's supposed to cover the world. There's breaking news going on in politics and other places. The focus of most of the hundreds of people who work on the shows is on other areas, and it's something that fell through. What I realize now actually happened, and again, it's not something to defend, but it's this was the thinking. My script was in their system, and they read the script. They always do. And the first line in my script was something like they had no time to be afraid, they say, only time to run. And that was my first line because people had told me that when I asked, what was the feeling when you saw the tornado? And a couple of them, or a few of them, said exactly that. Oh, we couldn't be afraid. There was no time to be afraid. Just time to run and find our hiding spots. So I used that line, and then we got into a few of the stories of the people who hid under the desk, the pastor and wife, and others. So as they were looking to tease the story, when they read my script, and of course in the busyness of focusing on other things, they thought that by no time to be afraid, it had something to do with the warnings. And of course they were wrong, and they were embarrassed, and nobody likes to be inaccurate. The people who make it to nightly news are people who've been producing for many, many years. They're the best. And I don't even know who specifically wrote that tease, but that person is aware because I alerted one of the senior producers, and they all talk. They have a postmortem every day. And I know that they're embarrassed, and that doesn't look good for them. It doesn't look good for the show, and so it's just a mistake that happens.
Now, there was a graphic, and again, I understand, Jacob, for us, we come from a different world. My first major in college was electrical engineering, and I finished in meteorology. I don't understand anything about journalism. There might be somebody in this panel down here that does, but there was a prepared graphic that said no warning. When do they make those graphics? Is that done minutes or hours before the show comes on?
It's one of the, I've actually never been there when they make them. I know that after their, every day at 2:30, they have, every day, they have a few meetings throughout the day where everybody who's involved in the story is able to dial in and call and have input. And the last one, at least that the correspondents and others call into, is at 2:30. And it's after that call, when I've been actually there in New York and been at the meeting, that's the only reason I know this. After that call, when they hang up, they talk about the teases. And they don't, and so that's 4 hours before show, but they don't decide right there. They just sort of throw around ideas. And, I don't know when they make them and actually decide it, but I know that they're working right up to the last minute to the show. So I don't know when they're actually made. Good question.
And let me ask you this, and again, I don't understand how it works at NBC, and really I don't understand ABC as much as I probably should, but at ABC, they have a full-time degreed meteorologist that is excellent, and there's more than one, but in terms of being on the air, and that's Ginger Z, and she has tried to become very involved in the process, and we try and do that on the local level. And trust me, this is a problem for all of us. It happens everywhere, and we've tried to be proactive. Is there a meteorologist, do you know, at NBC that gets involved in these stories to help these producers understand?
Oh yeah, we have several meteorologists. We have a whole weather team. We have. Whoops! Did you lose me there?
Yeah, your audio is great. And again, most people listen to this show, so if we by chance we lose the video, your audio is clean as a whistle.
Got it. So yeah, we have meteorologists. I don't even know all of their names. I haven't even met all of them, but I know we have. In fact, for the first time when I was in New York this past week, I actually saw the office where a few of the meteorologists are. There's one for the Today Show who comes in every day, and I didn't meet him, he wasn't there. And then there are a couple who are there for nightly news, and there may be more. But yes, we have meteorologists who are involved. And I talked to them, for example, on this last story, I was talking with one of them throughout the day. I would always, I called her early in the morning, I called her in the middle of the day, I called her before the live shot, I called her right before the live shot, just making sure that what we're saying is spot on. I think the issue is that we usually don't have issues with the teases because the teases follow the scripts, and the scripts are very well vetted. They go through layers of, what did I see on the ground, what did I talk about with the meteorologist, and so forth. And so what you had in last Wednesday's circumstance was that the script was misinterpreted, which doesn't usually, like I said, I've never known that to happen for my scripts.
And again, the whole thing, it's the system. So the next question is, so it was wrong, and I'll be honest. I mean, the weather community was not happy, and you can probably determine that not only in the public social media response, but also in the private response. And you've got this big branch of the weather enterprise, the United States government, NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. They can't just get on Twitter and point this out. They have to adhere to these rules. But I will tell you, the entire weather enterprise was just horrified, and it discredits the warning process. Where, well, on NBC Nightly News, they said there's no warning. These guys can't warn people for tornadoes. That's what the message is. And after years and years and years of building credibility and coming to the point where the warnings are so stinking good, the physical science is so good. The question is, where do we go from here? Is there any correction? Is there any way to try and fix this? And again, the ABC guys came back and did a story the next night because we pitched a hissy fit. Where do we go from here?
Good question. I don't know. I don't foresee them doing a correction and saying, remember last Wednesday when we said there was no warning, we were wrong. I don't see them doing that.
Why not?
Well,
and I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I mean, you were a godsend for coming on the show, so somebody we could talk to. But it's just like the question is, what do we do? Where do we go? So you're saying there's no hope of this thing ever being corrected?
No, I didn't say that. But I only said that only having worked for them for a couple of years, I have not seen that happen. That's basically what I'm saying. It's very difficult to get on nightly news, as you might imagine. They have 22 minutes of time, and they have the world to cover. There are nonstop editorial meetings, it seems like, throughout the week, throughout the weekend, to determine what gets on the show, and hundreds and thousands of good pitches and good stories that are happening around the world never make it on the show. And I have seen a correction on the show, but not for a tease which was wrong. That's all I'll say.
So you got this network, MSNBC, and I think that's the thing too. There's so many outlets, just maybe at some point somebody would consider coming back and again, not admitted. I think nobody in the weather enterprise, and I didn't ask this of Diane Sawyer for any apology or any admission of being wrong. We just wanted to set the story straight that the warnings worked very well. And the next question, and then I said this on the air, do you perceive any negativity toward the culture or the people that live in the southern United States from those that produce these shows in New York?
No. No. I think that generally when people talk about New York, I've heard it on the ground as being out of touch. Generally, I would say a lot of them are from the area, and we joke in Dallas that sometimes if a story that they had on the air, because it happened in New York, it happened in Dallas, it might not make it because the people are from there, and it's just closer to home. But there are people who work on the show who are not from there, who are from the Midwest or from elsewhere. And I think to say generally that everybody on the show views Middle America in the way that you described would be, as unfair as to say that all meteorologists do this or that, or all police officers do this or that, or no, it can't be true. I mean, there are many hundreds of people who work for NBC News, not even counting MSNBC. There are probably close to 1,000 people who work for NBC News throughout the world. They're all different kinds of people and backgrounds with families, children, married, not married, young, middle-aged, older, been in the business for 30 years, just started 3 years ago. And I think it'd be impossible to try to characterize what the people at NBC News think in that way.
And let me say this too. Let me defend Jacob. What this guy does is hard. You know what? I have to worry about one thing, and that's weather. I cannot imagine, Jacob, what you have to deal with. I mean, one day you're covering a tornado, and I think you were in Collinsville, Mississippi on that, right?
Yes.
So you're in Collinsville, Mississippi, covering a tornado. The next day you're covering a plane crash in Iowa, and you have to be an aviation expert. The next day you're covering a United States Supreme Court trial. You have to be a judicial expert. Next day you're covering the election. You have to be an expert in civics and government affairs. It is hard, and I defend journalists a lot.
A news director that I used to work for said that being a good reporter is like being an expert in something else, something new every day, and that's what they're tasked with doing. Mm-hmm. And you're right, it's difficult. Those who, Aubrey, I don't know if you've done any reporting. I did a little. Oh yeah. Bit. It's challenging because you have to set aside what you did yesterday, mm-hmm. and then pick up on things today. In a lot of cases too, especially in medium and larger markets, actually all the way through local markets, you may be doing 2 or 3 stories a day. There may be one sort of long form story, but there are 2 or 3 other smaller stories that you're having to turn on the course of a given day, and it's very difficult to do. Jacob, I wanted to know if go ahead.
No, go ahead if you've got a question.
Oh no, I don't want to. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, I was only going to respond and say that at the network we have a lot more support than I had. I used to work for local news. I worked for the NBC station in Los Angeles. I also worked for Fox News out of El Paso. I worked for a newspaper. I worked for ABC News in Jerusalem. And at the network here at NBC, I've never had more support. And you say you may have to be an expert in this or that. They actually do have real experts in just about every field that you can think of. And they have at the network, as they do in many local stations, beat reporters, people like Pete Williams, who's been covering the justice beat for decades. You have Andrea Mitchell, who's been covering the politics beat for decades, and several others, Chuck Todd and others. And so, for example, when I cover the Aurora Theater shooting and trial, the trial lasted 4 months. We're deep diving into the trial. I've covered many trials, but only in the last fewer than 10 years. But Pete Williams has covered every major trial, for decades. And so even though I'm the on-air reporter for that story, Pete Williams is behind the scenes talking with, he knows all sorts of people in every department of law enforcement, senior officials that he knows well. His information is solid. And the same can be said of, Andrea Mitchell in her field or others. And so whereas for example, Fox News in El Paso, when I covered the trial, I was the authority, even though I would talk to defense attorneys and others who knew much more than I did. But the editorial process is much different, much more thorough, as you might imagine, at NBC News compared to local markets or many other stations. You don't really have to be the expert. You have to learn all you can, but you have solid support.
So how much, there was a big to-do a number of years ago when Comcast bought NBC, and then there's the ownership group. There's some shared ownership with the Weather Channel. How closely do you, and from time to time we've seen Weather Channel talent on NBC. We've also seen them on CBS and other places. But do you have any sort of a working relationship between nightly news or NBC News in general and the folks in Atlanta with the Weather Channel? Is there any overlap beyond Al Roker showing up on both channels from time to time?
In fact, we work very closely. I was going to mention this earlier after I talked about how nightly news has a couple of meteorologists. We work very closely with the Weather Channel. Every morning during our editorial meeting, the Weather Channel has their time to talk about the storms that are coming or that just came. And, Chad Burke, for example, their assignment manager, is on the call, and he consults with his meteorologist before he goes on the call. And in fact, the night of this story, when we were in Memphis, I remember we saw on social media how there was some damage in Collinsville and elsewhere, and we drove there, and we didn't have a truck available to us that was very close, and so we decided the only way we were going to get live for the Today Show was to piggyback off of the Weather Channel truck.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time we decided all of that, they had gone to bed. It was after midnight, and we called them the next morning at 3 a.m. and we said, "Where are you guys going for your live shot?" They said Alabama in Aliceville. And we said, "Well, I'm here in front of this church. It looks pretty bad. I've got a picture I could show you, but I think that you may want to consider coming here." Anyway, they said, "Oh yeah, of course, we're going to come there." So they came there. We went live for the Today Show, and they did their live shots for the Weather Channel. I'm there with their reporters and producers. We're talking back and forth. I mean, we're a team.
Mm-hmm. So that begs the question. I'm going to go there, Kevin. You might want to come with me. He's waving me off. Weather Channel uses the storm names. NBC doesn't. Clearly, I think there's an editorial decision somewhere along the lines on NBC's part not to, and for the vast majority of of the Weather Enterprise, we don't use the Weather Channel storm names. Why did NBC, if you know, why does NBC not use the names, and are there any plans to start at any point?
I don't know, and I've asked that question just to producers. Hey, why don't we use the storm name? They say, "Oh, I don't know, we just don't use the name." So I guess I haven't cared enough to really ask. I've just been told we don't use the storm names that Weather Channel uses.
Gotcha. You won't have any objection from anybody in this panel about
That's
that.
not a bad thing.
Yeah, we have our,
It's
we have our
perfectly
own
fine.
thoughts about that. As I mentioned, the station that I work for, my day job, is looking forward to becoming an NBC affiliate here in a couple of weeks. And what we've been told and what I've heard around the industry is that the NBC News Channel is really the gold standard for affiliate, serving local affiliates. Do you guys have any interaction with them? Are there any things that my weather team needs to know about as we begin our new relationship with the news channel with NBC going forward?
Yes, we were a team as well. On the morning editorial call, I talked about we have the NBC News Channel, one of their managers speak every morning, and he often will catch stories that nobody else did because he's in touch with all of his affiliates. I've never been to where News Channel is headquartered, and I don't know very well the inner workings of News Channel. My relationship in the field with them is that they make requests to me while I'm preparing for the Today Show if I'll do a live shot for such and such affiliate or this another affiliate, and I guess I could say no, but I'd say yes as often as we're able to, and we just do that. But I'm not sure how they deal with the affiliates. I haven't been part of those conversations.
So again, let's we thank you for coming on the show, Jacob. But back to this original thing. What can we do in the Weather Enterprise to help you or help the news organizations to be sure this doesn't happen again?
So I think that you won't see that again on our broadcast. I
bless you.
Not to eat those words, but it's just being aware. I mean, they don't want to be inaccurate. I mean, that's want to stay as far away from inaccuracy as they can. And if there were warnings, which there always are, then you're not going to see a without warning unless we're going to the ground and everybody's telling us, hey, what the heck? None of the meteorologists were telling us about this tornado. I don't see how that would happen again, especially this particular instance. Now, gosh, what can we do in the future? I don't know. If I might have more to say about that if I had seen that the teases from my stories were regularly inaccurate, and maybe, I've only been here 2 years, but they've been good. I mean, they've been good, and maybe because I'm not a part of this community, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're regularly inaccurate. If so, let me know. And you know,
And fortunately, that it doesn't happen with any one individual group often, thankfully. I mean, it's not the kind of thing that it's a constant thing, but it's enough that I think we as meteorologists are sensitive to it for a couple of different reasons. For one, it's sort of our pride and joy. I mean, you look at, the one thing I like about my journalist colleagues is that they're as passionate about what they do in terms of, as we used to say at my old shop, shining light of truth and justice wherever we can. They're as passionate about that as we are about the weather. We all want to get it right, whatever it is, whether it's a news story, whether it's a forecast, or whether it's a warning. And I think that's really key. But so I think it's something that we're sensitive to, because every time it happens, it's sort of, oh, here we go again with this without warning trope, and it feeds into this notion that meteorologists don't know what they're doing. The bumbling ippy dippy weather guy that is always wrong. And when we go back and look at communication research, psychology research about why people don't heed warnings, why they don't make better decisions about weather forecast, based on weather forecasts, why they insist, for example, on driving in a snowstorm or driving through flooded roadway, there's this sense that, well, the weather people, they're always wrong. That feeds into that decision-making process. If you don't trust the source of the warning, you're less likely to act on it. And this goes back to a number of different lines of research going back 30, 40, 50 years. So it's something that I think we're sensitive to, not just because it hurts our feelings or it wounds our pride, although it does both of those things. But I think it really is an issue of, we really want to keep people safe, we want to keep people alive, and we realize that every little chink in the armor, if you will, every little dart that we throw at that, makes it less likely, perhaps incrementally so, marginally so, but it could very well mean the difference between somebody making a decision right now to take action or waiting 5 more seconds to make that decision, and that may mean the difference between being seriously injured or not. So I really appreciate you being on the show just to talk about it and to give us a little bit of perspective from the inside, because it's even for those of us who are in local TV, being able to talk to somebody who works for the network and to give us that insight of the process is fascinating.
Sure, and you should be bothered. I think very bothered. I mean, I was bothered. I was very bothered. I mean, immediately when we heard it, me and the producer, we took the earpiece out and we said, "Did you hear that?" If the way that James introduced the mistake was talking about one from, I think, 2012. If you have one of those every 4 years, maybe this is not right of me to say, but I mean, you're talking thousands and thousands of stories where you didn't have something like that. If those are the two main examples, and I'm sure, like for Diane Sawyer's show, it was just human error. It was just a perfect storm of so busy and the right people missing it. And I mean, there are a lot of layers, and that's why Nightly News wants to be the newscast of record. They want to put out only the information that is accurate. But you have. Go ahead. Was that somebody else talking?
It's a pager in here. I'm sorry. Oh. I work in a closet across from the news studio here, and they will not let me turn this pager speaker off. So it's a boneheaded place to do the show, but it is what it is.
Right. So I would say you'll probably continue to get mistakes even at the network level, but hopefully very few and far between because of the layers that are in place.
Hey, Jacob.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, we're in a lull here in this show. This is Kevin Selly. I'm in Wichita Falls, but I watched your dad kind of from afar for years because I was part of the BELO group with Texas Cable News. So good to see you, and enjoyed your dad. Did someone from the network ask you to call us, or how did you come to be on this show?
No, in fact, I mean, this is the magic of Twitter. I chose to respond. I reached out to there were a couple of reporters and a professor who had responded to our tweet for the newscast for this story, and said, very respectfully, but urgently, and in the tone that I thought was appropriate. Why would you put no warning or without warning when there was one? And I responded and said, I'll look into it. I wasn't a part of that process, but I'll find out. And I ended up emailing back and forth with one of these professors, and then on direct message with another journalist. And one of the journalists who I was messaging with, mentioned James and said, you might, reach out to him. I think he's really bothered. And I said, okay, what's his email? And she gave it to me. And so I emailed James, and he said, oh, thanks for reaching out. Join the show.
That's really nice of you for doing that. We appreciate it. My understanding of what the network's response has been, and Bill's not here, maybe he carried it or James did, was that, well, we're not sure we want to come on from the network side, especially with James, because he's an ABC affiliate, which didn't make a lot of sense to me.
No, when initially, because at NBC, of course, we're if there are ever any public appearances by the correspondents, we have attorneys also who go through the scripts, and we have standards people who go through the scripts and public appearances, and I reached out and asked. Well, actually, first before that, I reached out just to my direct boss, and no, I mean it was a valid question. One of the first questions was, well, this person who is asking you to be on a show, who do they work for? And I said ABC, and I mean that makes sense. You don't
right, but we were talking about the person. The person who executed the wrong tease. We'd sort of like to hear from that person too, or their supervisor, as to how that happens. Because I know you've explained how it happened, but it just seems like a pretty bad omission. And there was maybe we're more sensitive to the dust up with Diane Sawyer, but even at the local level and maybe the cable news level, this kind of without warning thing is sort of turned into a meme on its own, because it just seems to be more sensational.
Yeah, I honestly don't actually know who wrote that graphic, but I think that the message that you want to be received is received with them being aware, because whoever did it would never have done it knowing that there were warnings.
Right.
And to know that they have taken heat, and this is not just this person alone. I'm almost positive that if this would have come up during some sort of their post-show meeting, and nobody wants to be the one who says, "Hey, your graphic that you made was not accurate." Anyway, so I'm not going to go to NBC and say, "Hey, look, who made that mistake? Put them on the show." That's not going to help. But them knowing, and Twitter's really helping. I don't know. So please, if this ever happens with us or anybody, don't be. I wouldn't suggest being real nasty on Twitter, but be honest and be real. And this is our job to warn people, and we did it. And you just said we didn't. So please help us understand how we can not let this happen again. And I'd like to think that people will respond. I mean. Maybe you've tried this before and people haven't responded. I could be wrong. My natural inclination was to just tell you what happened.
And by the way, if you hadn't figured this out yet, Jacob, we've got people that are actually working on the air right now. Kevin's doing he's on local television, and I'll be on local television. So we apologize for the in and out. So I see Kevin's back now.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Jacob. I appreciate the answers. I'll have to go back and listen fully. One thing that rolls around in my head, though, is this particular topic is something that we know about. And I just wonder about all the people that sit and know about making widgets or making whatever other, know something about a story that is reported by any media, not just NBC or any network. And I just feel like there's this there's probably a lot of people who sit back on a given topic that they know about and go, that's not right. And
Yeah.
in the factory that you're in and the timetable in which you have to work, and all of us do, we just can't be experts on everything. And that's troubling to me, especially when we have a situation like this where we know about something and then we have James with a big enough Twitter voice that we can make a fuss about it. But I just wonder how often that happens in any and every other topic.
Oh yeah, we get people respond to the stories sometimes complaining. Usually, though, the complaint is a matter of opinion. I don't see
Right.
it that way. I don't see it this way. Or they disagree with one of the experts we had on, or they
Right.
disagree with something one of our interviews said, and it's not usually about fact. Like, no, there were actually this many people who died, because when we talk about any story, people who have died, for example, we've spoken to the sheriff or whoever. We've double checked it with the press release they had. We've double checked it with something else. I mean, we want to be the show of record, and so there are a lot of layers, and we do a good job there. You're right. If we do a story, for example, about we did some trying to look at something that's really different from weather. The story about the Apple iCloud, when it's supposedly hacked and a bunch of pictures were shared, and we'll go to people that we've gone to before, who we know are the best in their field, in this field, who know
Right.
about iCloud, and
Right.
talk to them. And if people disagree with them, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate you coming on. I would love to have a little more substantive answer from somebody in New York. It just, to the rest of us, and this is our thing, it seems obvious not to do that. And I feel like they've dodged the question that we put to them. How did this happen? And I guess they're not going to come on because James works for ABC. But I'm an NBC station. Nate's about to be.
Who's dodged the question? Nobody's dodged the question.
Well, we don't know who did it and how it happens. We know there was a misunderstanding, but nobody's accounted for that. Right?
Right.
I mean, ideally, the person who made the mistake or the producer in charge would step up and say, this is why it happened, and this person didn't know that no warning was a hot button, or didn't check on it, or this was an intern who made a mistake, just to get an answer. But no answer leaves us with no answer, and it leaves us to speculate.
I think I said why it happened, because of the script, and it was human error. Somebody reading the script and misinterpreting it,
Right.
to mean no warning. That is what happened.
Right. That's coming from you, but you weren't there. That's why I'm saying what we got, I think, and tell me, James, if James is gone, what we got from them was, no, we're not going to come on your program and answer this question because James is an ABC meteorologist.
No, you didn't get that from them. Nobody's reached out to them. I'm the only person who's been spoken to.
Oh, well, then I apologize, because I didn't know where the emails came. James. Okay, James sent that around so that came from you. So he hasn't to your knowledge, he hasn't spoken to anybody at the network.
No, nobody's spoken to anybody at the network, as far as I know, unless they haven't told me.
But
Let me say this. Jacob reached out to me. He sent me a very kind email, and yeah.
I thought you talked to somebody in New York, so nobody has talked to anybody.
That
in New York
was
Jacob.
me. I responded to I said something about ABC, because that was the initial response from my first boss, was, who does he work for? Because the person didn't know what show I was doing, and that it was not a ABC affiliated show. So I explained, and then she said, oh, okay. There was no big deal there.
I see. So we're not going to hear from the network on this, James?
Well, we'll ask, but we'll get Bill on it.
Okay.
We'll get Nate. Nate works for an NBC channel. I mean, come on, Nate. I mean, you are NBC.
Not yet.
You are WRAL. You are the new affiliate. I mean, come on.
Call me in about 21 days, and we'll talk. But until then, I still report to Les Moonves.
Well,
hey, and Jacob, one more thing. I've got
apologize
to
for
ask.
that. Go ahead.
I got to ask him. So this is like a new meme on the networks.
Yes.
And again, I know you have nothing to do with it, but this is a screen grab from ABC.
Okay.
And this was a day where it was a hot summer day, but temperatures were averaging about 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit above average. In other words,
Okay.
typical hot summer day. So the network news leads with heat emergency, 70 million people in the hot zone. And in the weather enterprise, we've noticed this is the new thing, 80 million in the path. And again, I can't speak for NBC. I'm talking ABC. I'll just forget you. I'll show you what I'm looking at here. This is their new thing, and they lead with weather almost every night, even during this political situation here. Do you think there's too much hyperbole? Which this is. I'll tell you now. This is insane. Where they'll take a day where it's rained somewhere, and maybe there's a little bit of minor flooding, and they blow that up into a lead. Is there too much weather hyperbole, you think, at the national level?
Just as you sit around and laugh or say, "Oh my gosh, that looks ridiculous." We're people. We do the same thing. I don't want to speak for. It is true that I think ABC will generally have more weather stories in their nightly newscast than NBC will. But on the number, the 80 million in the path, I think that sometimes we'll use a number and we'll add up the people who live in all of the areas where there is, if it's a watch or a warning or both, or we'll add it up and come up with 23 million in the path. That's where they get the number from. But as far as heat emergency for 1 to 2 degrees over, I don't know. I don't.
Those numbers of people in a path, you get into a severe. Where that started, I think, is it's been a year or two now ago. Rick's not here. Rick Smith from Norman, Oklahoma. The Storm Prediction Center started putting numbers of people possibly affected inside of their contours for severe weather risk. And so everybody in, I guess, at least a slight risk, or maybe just even the storm risk, which could be, the whole eastern half of the country, that adds up to a really big number. And I think where that came from is the SPC started publishing those numbers on their website, and it turns into a big clickbait sensationalistic number, which bugs all of us because we know that there really aren't 47 million people going to be affected by that, but that's the perception, and it feels like it's done for hype.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't make the decision on the number. That was simply a guess for me. It's part of the news process in general. Of course, when we go to, for example, Collinsville, we look for the worst damage to show what it could do, even though most of Collinsville is fine. That's just the nature of the broadcast. And that a little bit of that may have something to do with the 80 million, where somebody in the editorial room is thinking, well, how many people could this affect? What's the worst that this can do? Oh, 6 states. Oh, 30 million people. Okay, 30 million people threatened by a snowstorm. I think that's part of the process that I guess I've come to accept. I don't look at it as inaccurate. I guess I'm not speaking of any number specifically, just in the example that I gave. If they were to add up, 6 states, 30 million people, that's how many people are threatened by this storm, even if the storm, doesn't hit as hard as we thought it would. Maybe I shouldn't sound like I'm defending that, because I've seen many headlines where I thought, really? Are you sure that many people are?
And don't forget, it's always a monster storm,
right?
With 80 million in the path.
And sometimes, you know what? Sometimes, oftentimes, we will borrow adjectives from different meteorologists or experts we've talked to. For example, the El Nino over on the West Coast. There's a guy on the West Coast.
Yeah, the Godzilla guy.
Yeah, there we go. And he named it Godzilla, because he was showing it to a group of kids in an elementary school class, and they weren't paying attention to him. All they could do was argue whether it looked more like a T-Rex or a Godzilla, and they decided Godzilla. So he decided to name it Godzilla after that. And because this one, 18 years later is just as big, he also named it Godzilla. And so every time we mention El Nino, we say Godzilla El Nino.
Well, I think that's how the blizzard from January in a couple weeks ago started, because someone put out a meme with a snowfall map from Weather Bell, and it looked like basically the fire breathing out of Godzilla or something, and it was and somehow it turned into Snowzilla. That to me is that's a great storm name.
And by the way, I need to answer the question that Nate was asking earlier. This is why NBC News does not use winter storm names. For those that happen to be watching, you see what's there?
You're black. You're showing black.
Uh-oh. I'm showing black. Uh-oh. Well, it's...
While you fix that, I need to give Jacob credit, because he is the first one that has told me the full history of the Godzilla thing, going back to him talking to school kids. So that proves he went and did his homework. But see, nobody else reports that, right? I didn't know that. Maybe everybody else did. But it's part of the nature of the beast. You get a minute and 30 or less or whatever time you get, and you necessarily can't tell the whole thing. But the Godzilla part ends up being the sexiest and the clickbaity-ish, whatever, and that's what gets sent around, which is unfortunate. But thank you for doing your homework on that, Jacob. As a true network correspondent should.
Sure. Yeah, we like our homework. It's just part of the job. Almost every big story that I'm sent on, I start out with a binder, and like for El Chapo. I watched El Chapo news, but when I was assigned to go to Mexico to cover him getting recaptured, I pulled out a binder and I printed a lot of articles about his last escape and his previous arrests and how much money his cartel pulls in and all other things. And we're constantly doing homework.
All right, so again, now I got the graphic up. This is the reason NBC Nightly News does not use winter storm names. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. But we know you got to go, Jacob. But really quickly, you have an interesting story. Your dad works for KTRK in Houston, Art, right? He's a longtime anchor there, right?
Right, yeah. He used to be a correspondent for CBS Evening News. And his brother, my uncle, is also a journalist. He was a reporter in L.A. for a while, in Denver for a while. He now works in Salt Lake City at the CBS station there. That's where his parents live there. He's close to family. And my brother also is a journalist. He's a reporter at the NBC station in San Diego.
Wow. Well, listen, thanks a lot for coming on the show. And again, you've been here for an hour. You've been very kind and courteous, and it's a situation where, again, you weren't at fault. You're not involved in this. It's just one of those things where we get flustered, and for you to reach out to us and be willing to come on the show, we can't thank you enough. So, and we know that you will be our advocate there to be sure this doesn't happen again. So, thanks for your time, Jacob, and thanks for your help in coming on the show tonight. You
got it. Yeah, one person at a time. Oh, look, I'm getting new Twitter followers. Maybe people.
Yeah. So here we go. So what's your Twitter ID? So if you want to be a creeper and go follow Jacob, how do you follow you? What's your ID?
It's Jacob NBC, and then Instagram is my name, Jacob Rascon.
Okay, and again,
thanks, Jacob.
We appreciate it. You have
for having me. No, I'm always trying to meet new people and learn new things, and this looked like an opportunity to do just that. And I've deepened my appreciation for this community. I always knew that. I spent a lot of time with our meteorologist, for example, in LA, Crystal Egger, and of course Fritz Coleman is there as well. Just excellent people, and I would sit down with them and they would talk to me about how important what they were doing was and why words mattered. And so I always carried that with me, and so that's why I was knew how much this would sting, but this has also helped. And look, I mean, if one person at a time helps you guys out, then great. If if I ever hear about anything like that, I'll make sure it doesn't get on. But
Sounds like Jacob's the first guest to have ever learned anything on this show.
There's a first for everything.
Sure.
Hey, Jacob, thanks a lot. Have a great week, and God bless you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care, Jacob.
Okay, have a great. All right. Now they're freaking out on the PA here. No, I really do appreciate him coming on the show because this was going to be hard. It'd be like me screwing up a weather forecast coming on one of these radio talk shows in town. You know it's going to be brutal, but sometimes you have to do that. It's the right thing, and he didn't have to reach out. He didn't have to come on the show.
This wasn't we hunted this guy down. He reached out to us and volunteered. Right. Am I right? And that to me that says a lot. Makes me feel even better about the peacock coming to the Big Five.
All right, so I'm the oh brother, I'm the lead here. So we got to roll a couple of recorded segments. And again, Brian had to step out. He's working at 4 a.m. Aubrey had to step out. But we've got we'll do the weather roundup and the picks of the week and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
Last week, the 101 segment discussed the Suomi NPP satellite system. The name for this system comes from Werner Edward Suomi, a Finnish-American educator, inventor, and scientist. He is considered the father of satellite meteorology. Suomi was born in Eveleth, Minnesota, to John and Anna Suomi in 1915. His parents arrived in the United States in 1902 from Finland. The family surname, Suomi, is of Finnish origin and means Finland in Finnish. He was the sixth of 7 children. He outlived all but 2 sisters, Esther and Edith. He received his first degree from Winona Teachers College, now Winona State University, and taught high school science. Later, he attended the University of Chicago, where he received his Ph.D. in 1953. By 1948, Suomi was among the earliest faculty members of the Department of Meteorology at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Together with Robert Parent, in 1965, Suomi founded the Space, Science, and Engineering Center, SSEC, there, and from this came the first weather satellite to provide imagery from a geostationary orbit. It was named the Applications Technology Satellite, or ATS-1, and launched on December the 6th, 1966, with a spin-scan radiometer. The subsequent ATS-3, launched in November 1967, using a spin-scan camera, made what would be known as the first color images of the whole Earth. Suomi invented the spin-scan radiometer, which for many years was the instrument on the GOES weather satellites that generated the time sequences of cloud images seen on television weather shows. Suomi also led the development of MCIDAS, which stands for Manned Computer Interactive Data Access System, in 1972, displaying the images produced by his satellites, such as MS-1 in 1974. Suomi was a very popular professor, and he formally retired from teaching in 1986. During his career, he received numerous awards for his work on weather satellites. On January the 24th, 2012, NASA renamed the recently launched NPP Earth monitoring satellite after Dr. Suomi. On that occasion, John Grunsfeld, Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate, said that Werner Suomi's many scientific and engineering contributions were fundamental to our current ability to learn about Earth's weather and climate from space. Dr. Suomi died in Madison, Wisconsin at the age of 79, yet another pioneer contributing to the effort to better understand the amazing atmosphere of our Earth. Inquiring mind with a weather question? Drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
Assembly of the primary mirror on the James Webb Space Telescope was completed last week, as the 18th and final primary mirror segment was installed on what will become the biggest and most powerful space telescope ever launched. Each hexagonal-shaped mirror segment measures just over 4.2 feet across. It's about the size of a coffee table, and it weighs about 88 pounds. Once in space, the primary mirror will deploy Transformer style, and the 18 primary mirror segments will work as one large mirror. I spoke with Deputy Project Scientist Klaus Potampadan at the Space Telescope Science Institute near Baltimore. He tells me the project is on course for an October 2018 launch from French Guiana for its new home at the second Lagrangian point. There are 5 Lagrangian points in space, named for the Italian-born mathematician who wrote about the special gravitational features of those points back in 1772. Lagrange points are like gravitational hilltops between the gravity wells of Earth and Sun, and they make a great place to park satellites. The combined gravitational forces of the Sun and Earth create a point of equilibrium, and that saves on fuel. The first of those 5 Lagrange points is better known as L1, and it's directly along the line between Earth and the Sun. While this is a single point in space, there is enough room here that multiple spacecraft can gently orbit around that point and get the same benefits. Currently, 5 spacecraft studying the Sun, solar wind, and climate change back here on Earth call L1 home. L3, 4, and 5 share Earth's orbital path around the Sun. L3 is on the opposite side of the Sun from Earth. L4 leads the Earth in its orbit, while L5 trails. Both L4 and 5 form equilateral triangles with the Earth and Sun. So that brings us back to L2. Extend that Sun-Earth line through the Earth and you'll find L2, another 3 lunar distances beyond the orbit of the Moon, on the opposite side of the Sun. While the L1 neighborhood is filled with solar observatories, L2 is filled with observatories looking deeper into our galaxy and beyond. Currently the Gaia, Herschel, and Planck space telescopes are already at L2, but there's plenty of room for a new giant neighbor. The James Webb Space Telescope will reach L2 about a month after its launch. This point was selected because the telescope has to be cold enough to preserve observations in infrared. L2 allows heat energy in the infrared spectrum to be radiated away from the telescope, something that's not as easy in low Earth orbit where the Hubble Space Telescope currently is. Tennis court-sized sun shields will protect the telescope from energy coming from both Earth and the Sun, making for a quiet environment. L2 also enables constant communications with the telescope through NASA's Deep Space Network here on Earth. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
This is the show done the 8th of February for 2016, and we haven't even started the rant about this this cruise ship, the Royal Caribbean cruise ship that basically went into a hurricane. Dr. John, so they claim there was no warning on that. How could they do that?
Well, how can you be a captain on a ship like that and not know what's ahead of you? It boggles the mind. Remember back when Hurricane Joaquin went through its rapid intensification in the Caribbean? Same deal. There was a large ship. The captain drove it right into that storm. I don't understand it.
Yeah, this is 2016. I mean, I think every third grader out here at Joe Blow Elementary School knew that was going to be out there. And to me, that was a well-forecast storm. There was plenty of notice to mariners. And how in the world could that happen? I mean, we got to get some of these jabronis on the show.
Yeah, these guys have onboard reception of weather data. It's not as if they don't have the data in front of them. They do.
Yeah, there's a great story here. But anyway, we need to do a weather roundup. So, Dr. John, I'm going to let you do that, and I've got to go be the lead in here. So you and Nate are going to take charge here for Picks of the Week, and we'll do Aubrey's email segment next week. So you guys are in full control, so go.
All right, James. Let's just take a quick look for those of you that can see this. I'm going to share this must be about a 12-hour IR loop across the U.S. and shows that this storm that created a hole basically in the ocean. I think it went down to 951 millibars. It's now moving rapidly off towards the northeast, and many of us here in the east are starting to deal with a winter storm. And I think that's probably the big news in terms of weather, is this storm very large, expansive. There's going to be probably on the order of 30 to 36 hours of snowfall where I am here in southern Pennsylvania. And kind of ill-defined at the surface. Makes it for a difficult forecast. Nate?
So I have a question, and I had a friend of mine sort of ask me and get into this, and I answered it, but I wasn't satisfied with the answer I gave him. With the storm that bombed offshore yesterday and is now pulling away, what is the relationship between the minimum central pressure and the wind field, especially with the maximum wind within a system. Obviously with hurricanes, you typically have a tighter wind field.
Yeah.
There's a pretty clear correlation between the minimum central pressure and the winds that you expect to find in the eye wall immediately surrounding the circulation, the center of circulation. But with an extratropical cyclone, the wind field is bigger. But when it came to relating the minimum central pressure that you'd find with an extratropical cyclone, the size of it, and my sense was that in addition to the fact that you've got a low central pressure, you also have the fact that the storm was strengthening at the time, and that was contributing to the wind speeds as well. But is there more to it than that?
Well, let's talk about the second part of your question, and that was this intensification that was occurring. I'm going to, once again, share an image. This is from the Ocean Prediction Center. If you ever look at their stuff, it's really pretty fantastic. And this is an image showing the storm when it was 979 millibars, just about due east of Wilmington, North Carolina. And you're asking about the central pressure, Nate. And typically with extratropical cyclones, the pressure field is not distributed symmetrically across the center of the storm. And in this case, it certainly wasn't. It was strongly backloaded in terms of pressure back towards the coast. From a forecast perspective, those of us that had been watching this for several days, that upper level system, which was coming across the deep south, was going through a pretty impressive amplification. So the wavelength was shortening, and the height of the disturbance was increasing north to south. So how can you not think that an amplifying upper trough moving into and over a baroclinic zone isn't going to generate a pretty intense cyclone? That's just basic meteorology. And to not be aware of this, and you're in charge of a ship with how many people are on that ship? 1,000, 2,000? I don't know.
It was more like I want to say the number of passengers was on the order of 4,000 and something like 12 to 1,500 crew. So you're well in excess of 5,000 people on the ship.
That's reprehensible then. I mean, that's criminal, I think.
It was certainly inexplicable, I think, was the word the Capital Weather Gang used. I don't know that I can disagree with that. I'd love to. Yeah. I'd love to know that. Across the rest of the country, here in the southeast, we've got another shot of cold air coming. It looks like we're going to be cold across the eastern third to half of the country for about the next week. As a matter of fact, as we look here in Raleigh at the weekend, we could be looking. I think it was Sunday, where we could have highs staying in the 20s. The European model is especially emphatic on keeping us just bone-chilling cold. And for us to stay in February, in mid-February, for us to have a day of sunshine and we don't get out of the 20s, that is a cold air mass. Because now this time of year, we're starting to get into, the sun angle starting to come up. We're far enough south that, this time of year, mid-February, the sun's as high in the sky as it is in mid-October, which is still pretty high. I mean, we're doing all right in terms of sun angle. So, but of course, on the East Coast, we've got a trough, which means we probably have something different going on the West, and that seems like what we'll be having later this week with a big ridge building across the West Coast. That likely will shut off the precipitation to California for a while. I know that was a big issue leading up to the Super Bowl. We covered, our crew in Santa Clara talked about the fact that they'd had a hard time getting some of the sod ready because they'd had so much rain that it delayed some of the Super Bowl preparation. So,
yeah, I was just checking the temperatures across the U.S. Great Falls, Montana, is 41 degrees. They could be 60 degrees colder than that this time of year.
And we are 38 here in Raleigh, so it's colder in Raleigh, North Carolina than it is in Great Falls, Montana. There's something wrong with that. So. Anyway, well, let's move on to the picks of the week, and this will be fairly short because at this point it's only me and Dr. John, although I can scroll through and talk about some of the other picks. Aubrey, who had to bail out, she's got a family in town, and she's talking about nor'easters. This is a pick that Dr. John, a subset of a pick that Dr. John had given a couple weeks ago, but a definition of nor'easters, an explanation of that. James's pick of the week is, and we've had this before, but the enhanced data display from the National Weather Service. This is, if you like weather data and you like maps, this is Geek Heaven. There's some really cool stuff here. And one of the neat things that you can do with the EDD is put in a travel route. So let's say you want to drive from Raleigh to Great Falls because 38's just not warm enough and you want to get to the warm, sultry weather in Montana. You can plug that in, tell it when you're going to leave, and it will give you a forecast for your route of travel, approximating what the weather will be when you are passing through different points. This is pretty advanced stuff. I dig it. I love what the Weather Service is doing with that. My pick of the week is something that Steve Hallett, who is if I'm not mistaken, is a student at Penn State. He's a man after my own heart. He is a meteorology major and also in computer science. And he's also a space nerd and an aviation buff. I mean, he and I are brothers from a different mother, I think. I don't know that he wants me to say that, but he tweeted something earlier today that just was gorgeous, and it was a picture of this storm as it was developing off the North Carolina coast. At this point, the center of the storm was probably due south of Cape Hatteras, give or take a couple of miles, and he had superimposed the golden spiral, or the Fibonacci spiral. If you've seen this, the golden ratio, that sort of I don't know. It's you'll know it when you see it, but it is fantastic. He superimposed it, and it's why these things I think are so captivating. They talk about the spiral and the golden ratio being such a big part of why we think certain types of art are visually appealing, and a lot of artists will try to incorporate proportions in this golden ratio thing, or incorporate the spiral into their imagery or their art. And this storm system really sort of fits that really, really well. I remember having to do a project in my first calculus class in college about the golden ratio and the Fibonacci spiral. It was really cool stuff. So check that out and give Steve a follow. I was scrolling through his Twitter feed over the last few days. He's got some pretty interesting stuff. So give him a follow and check that out. Dr. John, a pick of the week from you, sir.
Sure, Nate. First, I looked at that as well, and it's fantastic. My pick of the week has to do with Tom Skilling.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Many of us know Tom. I've had the pleasure of knowing him for several years. Great guy. They did a piece that they taped. It was entitled Dirty Weather Words Used in a Sentence by Tom Skilling and the WGN Weather Guys. These are hilarious. They're terms that all of us use, like beaver tail, or hoarfrost. And they talked about all these guys who went around a table and they used those words in a sentence. And I'm telling you, you're going to be on the floor listening to this.
This is good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Well, it is now 11 o'clock here, past 11 o'clock here on the East Coast. So we'll start to wind down. I do want to give you a heads up on some of the shows that we've got coming in the next few weeks. We've got CCAPS. We'll be talking about that with Andrew Murray from the University of South Alabama on the 22nd of February. On Leap Day, the day that NBC comes to WRAL, we will have Dennis Mercero, who is not only, since the last time we talked about it, Dennis, he's not only been doing weather for Mental Floss and writing for them, but he's also writing for Forbes. I saw something that he posted earlier today. So if you thought that his writing was done when the Vane and Gawker decided not to do weather anymore, well, you are wrong. He's all over the place. Jeff Medlin from the National Weather Service in Mobile will be on in early March, and mid-March we'll be talking with Ryan Vaughn, the chief meteorologist at KAIT Television in Jonesboro, Arkansas, the coolest small market station you've never heard of but need to. Ryan's a pretty cool guy. We'll be looking forward to talk to him. I see Kevin has joined us again. Kevin, you just in time to give us a pick of the week.
He's shaking his head.
Shaking his head. All right, well, never mind then. Go on, you. Accelerant. We worry about you, man, to get you some
kerosene.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is WeatherBrains. It is the all about the original, all about the weather podcast. We normally record the program on Monday nights, starting at about 8:30 Central Time via Google Hangout. Of course, most folks, as James mentioned earlier, listen to the program on podcast form later on. So we certainly appreciate all of you, whether you're watching live or listening to us in podcast form. You can find links to the picks of the week, links to all of our social media profiles, bios on our guests, all that good stuff, weatherbrains.com. And if you have a link you want us to talk about, you have a guest suggestion, something like that, shoot it to us in email at weatherbrains.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+, MySpace, Friendster, Tinder. We're on Tinder. Snapchat, I'm sure we'll be there eventually. WeatherBrains is usually a pretty good guess, so you can find us there. Appreciate Jacob Rascone from NBC News being on the program and for reaching out to us about that little dust up last week. We appreciate his coming on the program and encourage you to follow him. He's at Jacob NBC on Twitter and Jacob Rascone on Instagram. So give him a follow and check him out.
I was really impressed with his
Yes.
professionalism.
I was, and that was really cool of him, not only to pick up on that, but to go through the approval process within NBC to be able to come on this little podcast that we do. That says a lot. That speaks highly of him, and we're certainly glad he came on the program. So until next week, I am not James Spann. Good night, and God bless.
All right.
Gentlemen,
I wish
thank
you
you
well.
much.
Have a good evening.
See you, Dr. John. See you,
So
Kevin.
long,
Take
Nate.
care.
Good to talk to you.
Bye.
Stu, still here. Thanks, guys, for watching. We're about to do Song of the Night. If you want to join us over on Periscope, we'll do that in about 10 minutes. I got to do some weather on television, so we'll see you guys on Periscope if you'd like. Just follow my Twitter feed and you'll see it there. We're doing Earth, Wind, and Fire Week. Maurice White died, the founder of that band. So it'll be a fun week. Thanks for watching. Really interesting show. I'm going to go back and listen to this one again. Look forward to that tomorrow driving. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week. Y'all have a great week. Bye-bye.